Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Daily News Sports Podcast. My name is Jack Williams, the sports editor, alongside Zach Piatt, the assistant sports editor.
Hello.
And today we're going to be talking about two baseball, softball, base sports, whatever you want to call them, baseball and softball here at Ball State. Two
Dear
teams
Lord.
both rolling right now, and we're going to dip into some upcoming content. So let's get into it. I was on Twitter and I saw that the baseball team put a weird number of runs up, 20 to be exact. It's another hot weekend for them. What happened? What really set them aside from Western Michigan in their competition this weekend?
Well, from everything that I saw this weekend, was Western Michigan's pitching staff seemed to be pretty depleted for the most part. Because early on in the series, in that Friday game, they threw their ace. They threw their top pitcher in that Friday game, and he didn't last too long. Actually, if I take a look here, Chris Madrinsky, I apologize if I butchered that, Chris, but he went 4 1/3 innings, gave up 10 hits and 7 runs in that 4 1/3 innings, and so we roughed him up a little bit. But it seemed like they almost like didn't have anybody else that could pitch up to his caliber, and so we won that first game. I believe it was 8-5, and then we come into Saturday's game and we win 10-3. But yes, what you mentioned just a minute ago, today. 20-15 was the final score.
20-15.
That was definitely something to witness. Ball State was scoring runs all over the place, and like if you look at my scorebook right here, it's all filled in with a bunch of runs. And actually, the interesting part was Ball State actually they were up 20-3 going into the bottom of the 8th inning, and that is when. Western Michigan, actually, their bats started to heat up. They scored 4 runs in the 8th inning, and then they scored 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They scored 8 runs in that 9th inning with 15 batters coming to the plate. So they almost batted around 2 whole times in that final inning. But yeah. Ball State was able to pull out a 20-15 win. I don't know how often you get to say that score in baseball, but that earned them the 3-game sweep. And afterwards, Coach Maloney took all the players out for ice cream. So that was a nice way to end the weekend.
Now, I think I brought this up to you earlier. I had a lot of concern when you told me about this and kind of how the game went about the team kind of, I don't like putting it this way, but choking in the final innings, against Purdue Fort Wayne. Purdue Fort Wayne had that huge comeback, and it looked like it was happening again against Western Michigan. I mean, having a big lead and then just possibly sufficing that. I mean, that's not the issue here, really. I think you were telling me that Maloney was really giving the guys who didn't have a lot of playing time a chance to get in and get the working done, and that was obviously when you have guys who aren't playing too much going to contribute to a few runs and stuff like that. So there's no really any problem with late game choking or hysterics like that.
It doesn't seem that way. I'm looking back here at that Purdue Fort Wayne game earlier this week, and there were a lot of pitchers used in those games, especially those midweek games. Not to say that they don't matter as much, but like if you ask Coach Maloney, he will say something along the lines of these midweek games are kind of like tune-up games for the weekends. So you don't throw your top pitchers in those midweek games. You don't not to say you don't play your hardest, but it's like it's one of those games where like if you lose, it's not the biggest of deals. But as I was mentioning, the pitching used, Purdue Fort Wayne had 6 pitchers that they used in that game, none of which went more than 2 innings. And then Ball State had 5 pitchers that they used. So, and a large part of that was actually due to the starting pitcher Lucas Joksic. He finished 1 inning and then had to be taken out with an apparent injury. But Ty Weatherly came in, pitched 4 1/3, solid innings. And then 3 others shut the door in the last couple of innings there. But no, like you mentioned, Purdue Fort Wayne started to come back. Ball State was up at one point, 5-0. But then then Purdue Fort Wayne comes back and they take a 10-7 lead going in, or make that an 11-8 lead going into the 9th inning. And Ball State comes back and scores 4 runs to win it. But no, today against Western Michigan, it may have seemed like a little bit of the same was happening, but as I talked on the phone with Coach, he mentioned how he took that huge lead, 20-3. He took that lead as an opportunity to get some of his younger pitchers some time on the mound, maybe get a little bit of development out of them. Obviously, they got roughed up a little bit, the guys that he did use, but he viewed it as an opportunity rather than a setback. So yeah, he got some more guys some work, and they came out with the win, and he said that was really all that mattered.
Definitely. This is a team that really has no problem exercising their pitching unit at all. I mean, I was down to see the UCF Ball State game a few weeks ago, and oh my God, 13 innings. UCF ended up winning 9-8. But I mean, every time, it felt like every time, like, I don't know how to explain it. Every time a UCF player was either walked or kind of got some sort of connection with it, it was always Maloney just walking out to the mound, and it felt so consistent. Looking at it right now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 different pitchers pitched in that game. And I think I've learned from that and what you've been saying along this entire season, that this team has a lot of pitching that they can rely on, but they have a lot of pitching that they can swap out if one isn't working at one time.
They do, yeah. They've got three main starting pitchers that they rely on throughout these weekend series. It's actually switched up since the beginning of the season. Initially, they thought it was going to be John Baker, Dre Jameson, and Kyle Nicholas that were really going to be like the 3 horsemen for him to start games through these weekend series. But Kyle Nicholas has really developed into like a closer role for this team. He has 5 saves on the year. His other teams are batting under 100 against him. He's got a ton of strikeouts on the year. The guy is electric in the back of that bullpen. But the 3 guys that they have now, John Baker's still one of them. Dre Jameson is still one of them. Last I checked, Jameson actually leads the Mid-American Conference in strikeouts.
Really?
So he's on a roll. John Baker actually did not pitch the first couple weeks of the season. When they were down south, he had some inflammation in his in his throwing arm. But they've worked him back, and his last start, which was actually yesterday, on Saturday, he threw, I believe it was 7 innings. 7 innings, that was his longest outing of the year. A bunch of strikeouts for him and limited Western Michigan to just a couple of earned runs. So you got him. But then Chase McDermott was the other one. He's a redshirt freshman. I believe I talked with Coach Maloney a couple weeks ago, and he mentioned how McDermott has actually come in and filled a really big role, because I think it was last year he had Tommy John surgery on his elbow, and so he hasn't pitched in like months, like maybe even more than a year. But he comes in and he's been great coming in, and actually today he threw let's see here, 6 innings. Only gave up 4 hits, and he had a career-high 13 strikeouts. Before today, his career-high in strikeouts was 7 in a game, so he just about doubled that. And that was that was pretty special to see. But like we were talking about earlier, his performance was actually kind of overshadowed by how well the offense was clicking, scoring 20 runs. But yeah, the pitching staff for sure. That bullpen as well. Maloney's got a few guys that he can go to that he really trusts out of that bullpen to shut things down for the other team.
Yeah, and you were telling me earlier, and this was posted in the MAC poll, this team was expected to finish second or third in the MAC for the championship or the regular season, or was it both?
Well, it's a little bit of both, yeah. Once you get to the end of the season, there is a conference tournament, but at that point, it's anybody's game. But no, the projections were mainly for the regular season, saying Kent State was projected to win the conference, and then I believe Ball State and Miami of Ohio were right there in the 2-3 spots. Either way, I'd have to double check that for sure.
Mm-hmm. And you were talking about how the team might be tested not in Valparaiso, but coming up against Kent State this weekend. Kent State being that team to pick to win the whole thing, but early season predictions are early season predictions, and this is the MAC. It can go either way. So, how do you think they're going to be tested this weekend in Kent State, and do you think they're going to be successful in that regard?
Well, I mean, Kent State has been for the past decade or even more, like they have been known for just dominating the Mid-American Conference in baseball, that is. And you there aren't many teams that you can say that about in here. Ball State has always been kind of in the mix, but they've never really been able to really overcome Kent State. Last year, actually, in their 3-game series against them, they actually beat them 2-1. But, I mean, after seeing what Ball State did offensively against Western Michigan, I understand that Western's pitching staff wasn't as great as some of the other teams. However, just the dynamic of this Cardinal offense was something special to watch, and I was very impressed, and I honestly think with the way they were clicking, they could have roughed up anybody in the conference, and probably a handful of more throughout the country as well. We've mentioned how good the pitching staff is looking so far, but the offense, I mean, I definitely feel like Ball State could give Kent State a run for their money, not just in this series, but for the conference crown as well.
Well, you hear from Zach. Ball State's going to be a team to look out for throughout this entire season and the early MAC season as well. He'll have coverage for the Valparaiso game coming up. I believe it is on Wednesday, yes. They will be facing Valparaiso. Yeah, Ball State will be facing Ball State. No, they'll be facing Valparaiso. I'm having trouble with that.
Come on, Jack, get with the program.
Valparaiso, yes. About an hour from my house back home. But they'll be facing them at first, Merchants, and then they'll be. Is Kent State at home, or are they traveling?
No, it will be here in Muncie.
All right, so they'll be playing Kent State at First Merchants this upcoming weekend. So transitioning over to our second team, the one I mainly cover, Ball State softball. This team had high predictions just in the early season. They were predicted to win the MAC regular season. They were predicted to win the MAC championships, and so far they're standing to that regard. They had a 3-game series with Akron this weekend. On Friday, they beat them 14-6 in 6 innings. This is the game that stands out to me the most. They beat Akron 13-1 in 5 innings on Saturday in the first game of their doubleheader. However, 11 runs were scored in the bottom of the first inning, and then 9-1 in that second game of the doubleheader against Akron. This team is electric in that regard. Their freshman roster is just unbelievable. I've never seen a team with freshmen perform like this in my life. You have Mackenzie McCarty, who's been locked down. Amaya Daniel, who last weekend in Georgia sent 3 home runs over the fence. This weekend, she had an RBI in the first game of 4. And pitching as well, Sarah Venker. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, but she's picked up her 12th win out of a 5-person pitching unit. She's leading seniors, she's leading juniors, and I think Coach at one point told me on the field there was only one junior and one senior, and I think the rest were either sophomores or freshmen. And this team is not only going to be good this year, but they're really looking to regards of just a strong future in general. I mean, if you have freshmen stepping up like that, it's a really big deal. So they're going to be challenged again this upcoming weekend. They'll be taking on Kent State in Kent State was predicted to finish second in the MAC. They're going to be in kind of a three-person switch-up. Kent State, Ohio, and Ball State are kind of all the top predicted to be in this conference. So Coach told me this weekend is kind of going to challenge them, and they're going to figure out where they fare within the three at the top of the league. Zach, I suggest if you can get over to the other side of First Merchants,
Right.
I definitely suggest it. This team is something crazy to watch for sure.
Well, I've been following along, not too closely, just because I've been so caught up with everything happening with the baseball team. But I believe yesterday with their 2 wins in the doubleheader, that makes 7 in a row, 7 wins in a row. And I also just checked the schedule. Also, 13 of their last 14.
Yes, crazy number.
They're on a roll.
They are. They had a rough tournament out in Clearwater. I was out there and talked to them. They sounded very disappointed by their finish. Granted, they were really challenged. They faced number 9 South Carolina in their first game. They faced host USF, and then they played Iowa for a 10-3 loss, and they were upset. And I remember speaking to Haley Dominique, and she told me that they need a spark. They need some sort of grind. Well, they got that. They defeated Bethune-Cookman twice. They rolled through the Jacksonville University of North Florida Spring Break Challenge, picked up some big wins there. In this stretch, they only have one loss to Fordham, 4-3, but they kind of made up for that final game of I believe it's the Mercer Bears Classic. They defeated them 11-3 in 6 innings. So if that's vengeance, I don't know what is. If that's not vengeance, I don't know what it is. And they broke into the MAC play crazy this weekend. I think I had the stat up for those 2 doubleheader games. They outscored Akron 22-2, and I don't know. There's a lot that's going to happen with this team this season in my predictions. However, like you said, the MAC can go either way, and I think it could go either way for any sport. Kent State's a good program. They're going to face Northern Illinois, who knocked them out of the MAC tournament last year twice. They lost in the first round last year, and then they got to that final game. If they won it, they would have played for a championship. They lost that final game in the losers bracket to Northern Illinois. So there might be a little they might still have a sour taste in their mouth after
I'm
that.
sure.
Bowling Green, I'm kind of just running down the schedule here. But, it's going to be an interesting season for sure for Ball State softball. And I'm definitely excited as well, too. Great team, great coach, all great to talk to, and they seem very excited as well.
One thing that I'm really noticing as I'm looking through both teams' schedules right now is just Ball State baseball has now won, I believe, like 6 in a row. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, 6 in a row for baseball and now 7 in a row for softball. But when I look at this, like, not all of them are convincing wins and by a lot of runs, but like all of these games for either team are by, like, they themselves have scored quite a bit of runs. So, like, running through the baseball team's wins, they score 11 against Dayton. They win 6-0 against Purdue, 12 runs against Purdue Fort Wayne, and then against Western Michigan they go 8, 10, 20. And then you look at I looked at softball. And during their 7-game win streak, 10, 10, 6, 11, 14, 13, 9. Like, all these numbers are, like, I'm used to seeing games that are 6 runs, 5 runs, and every once in a while you might get up there towards double digits. But both of these teams are consistently staying up there around and even going over the top of 10 runs a game. So it seems like some high-powered offenses have have come to play this year for baseball and softball.
Absolutely. And I mean, if anyone has the time really to get over to First Merchants, I know games are kind of in the middle of the day and they can be longer, but both these teams are really hot right now, and they have really big expectations as predicted from the MAC poll. And if you can get out there, do it. I mean, the Akron series I went to is really exciting. Zach could probably say the same for the Western Michigan's games as well. These teams just dynamic this year. So yeah, I think that's our wrap up kind of with softball and baseball. We're kind of going to try to jump over and get my laptop. We're going to kind of run through some of the interesting content we have coming out this week, what's going on this week. And yeah, give me a brief pause. Zach, you want to distract them or whatever?
Sure, yeah. I'll go ahead and start talking about my March Madness brackets to as Jack gets some things set up over here. So I mentioned last week.
I want to disrupt.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I got a notification on my phone about March Madness, actually. By the time this comes out, we're going to know the result of it. But Duke is struggling with Central Florida. Central Florida is up 74-70 with a minute 51 left on Duke.
They just
number
got
one
another
seed.
one, 76-70.
76-70. If Central Florida wins this, I'm sorry, UCF, they don't like Central Florida. I watched a whole video about it. But if they win this, there's a lot of brackets that are probably going to be, I mean, a lot of them are busted, but a lot of them are going to be done. They're going to be burnt into the pile. And I mean, Zach picked Duke.
I did. My bracket will be included in that. There's a 3-pointer by Cam Reddish. So
and they're hanging on.
I'm just gonna keep that open right there. But yeah, if that ends up happening, my champion is out of here. But I did want to bring up that mascot bracket that I advertised to you guys about last week. Not doing too hot, believe it or not. Having Bradley win it all against. As they lost to Michigan State in the very first round, even though they gave them a run for their money throughout most of the game. But no, Bradley's out. Actually, 3 of my Final Four teams are already out. Auburn is the last one standing for me. They're actually looking pretty good. But I have 6 teams remaining in that mascot bracket that could possibly still give me some points. And it's not looking too bright for that one, to say the least. My actual bracket is looking pretty good for the most part. But like we said, if Duke loses this game, as much as I'd love to see UCF upset Duke and basically ruin everybody's March, I like that. That's just gonna burn everybody's bracket to the ground. But you know what? At this point. Why not? Because if my bracket goes down, I'm looking at this, and you know what? Millions of other people's brackets are going to be going down along with it. So, you know what? Go ahead, Taco Fall. Go ahead, UCF. Make it happen.
We have a whole group here of the editors and our sports writers that are doing a bracket challenge here. If Duke loses, we're going to have probably myself at the top because I had North Carolina winning the whole thing. 2 who had LSU, 1 who had Virginia, and 1 who had Tennessee, and another who had Gonzaga. The rest had Duke. This is a 15-person group. I'm not counting the last person because they forgot to fill out their bracket. But I'm not. A lot of these people chose Duke, and if this happens, I mean, it's going to be monumental, first of all, and just go down in March Madness history. But the group's going to collapse. I'm kind of rooting for it because I've had no luck in this tournament at all. And, you know, my team is still in. Did they play already in the second round?
Yes.
Okay, so they're still going.
Already won.
So go Tar Heels. We beat Washington today. But no, this could be really big. Some other scores as well. I don't know why I'm saying this. When this comes out, these games are going to be far over. But Texas Tech is currently leading Buffalo. I'm just going to leave my opinion out of it. Liberty and Virginia Tech are tied right now. We have Oklahoma and Virginia coming up, Houston and Ohio State, and then Oregon and UC Irvine. That's an interesting matchup, a 12 and a 13. Don't really see that a lot. UC Irvine, currently Cinderella right now, beat out Kansas State. I know that broke a lot of brackets as well, too. Zach, did you catch the game between Tennessee and Auburn?
I did not. However, I heard that was quite an exciting. Wait, do you mean Tennessee and Iowa?
Tennessee and Iowa, yes.
I did not.
I was looking at Auburn on my phone. That's why.
I did not. However, throughout the entire game, everybody up there in the press box, in the baseball press box today, was keeping track of it, and it seemed like it was over. And I was about to mark it down because at one point Tennessee had a 25-point lead, and I was totally 100% ready to just say, okay, Purdue's playing Tennessee in the Sweet 16, but then wouldn't you know it, Iowa comes all the way back and forces overtime, but couldn't quite get it done in the extra frame. But that was something just to see the notification to say, hey, we're going to overtime. I said, are you kidding me? I could not believe it.
Well, I was watching that game. Iowa just completely collapsed in overtime. Tennessee just dominated them, and it was crazy from that comeback they made, and Iowa just couldn't handle it. But no, that's March is definitely mad. It's not as crazy as probably last year. Last year, in my opinion, was probably the craziest March Madness that has happened in a really long time.
Well, there are just so many higher seeds just keeping on moving on. I mean, you had Kansas State made one of those runs. Loyola Chicago over everybody going to the Final Four. Just about made it to the championship. They gave Michigan a real scare. I believe Florida State. Did they win a couple games, or that might have been? I believe they did.
Yeah,
actually.
they did. I remember.
Nevada
them.
made a run as well. I mean, it was a couple of years ago it was Syracuse, but that was a couple of years ago. But yeah, last year was exciting to watch, and my bracket was done I think after day 2. So.
Yeah, that tournament was unpredictable. I mean, I remember being in Gentile Arena during the Final Four game. That was really special as well too. I live about 40 minutes from Loyola Chicago, so it was a lot of fun. But yeah, that tournament was predictable. I need to enunciate. And this one's turned out pretty crazy as well.
Also, yeah, Duke's got a 1-point lead with 8 seconds to go. UCF has the ball.
I know. I have it on mute right here.
Yeah. This is absolutely nuts, I got to tell you.
If we freak out during this podcast, which we're trying not to do, but if we do, it's probably going to be because Central Florida. I'm sorry, UCF won. I don't know why I keep on correcting myself.
I know, you said that last week when Drew brought up his LSU bracket. You kept calling them Louisiana State, and I was like, who calls them Louisiana State? But not.
Well, that's their name.
I know, I understand, not to criticize or anything, but it's like no one calls it Louisiana State. It's LSU, dude.
The University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. We're just gonna screw all of it up right here as well. But yeah, I had something I was gonna say, but I completely forgot. I'm getting distracted.
Well, I just saw the final update, so I'll let you watch that.
Oh no!
Yep.
They lost by 1.
Duke wins it.
That's rigged.
Well, everybody's bracket is still alive, and that means I still have a chance to win our editor pool.
Yeah,
so
I guess you and 10 other people do. They're going to the Sweet 16. But talking about, no, I remember what I was gonna say. So I think I'm calling them Central Florida because I really don't like them, just because of that whole football thing and them saying they're the national champions. So it was midnight on Friday, and I was on my phone, and I follow UMBC because they're just entertaining. Whether they're playing or they're not playing this year, so they're just entertaining in general. So, who did UCF beat in the first round? They beat VCU.
VCU is it?
So they were rooting them on, and they're like, UMBC's account was like, oh, good luck to the national champions, and like try to go for another one. And I sat there and I quote tweeted it. And I said, I'm like, let's not do this again.
And then they responded to you.
They responded to me and clapped back at me. And they responded within an article that said like, UCF was considered the national champion by a poll that is recognized by the NCAA. However, it's this obscure poll I have never heard about before. I can't remember the name of it because it probably doesn't matter. But I mean, AP, USA Today, the college coaches poll, those all picked Alabama, but this one lone one was like, oh, we're gonna pick UCF. So they sent me that article, and of course that got a ton of favorites, and my regular tweet did not. But yeah, that's kind of what happened to me in all this madness at midnight on Friday, out of all times. So, and if like I was looking at my interaction rate on Twitter, and it like skyrocketed between midnight and 2 a.m, and I'm like, oh, you don't really see that a lot.
It's got to feel good, honestly. Like I haven't had something of mine take off like ever. I know you had something earlier this year when you took the picture in South Bend about the Catholics versus C students.
Yes.
When Notre Dame played Ball State, so that was pretty cool to watch take off.
It was generally a good response from that, but I mean, you had people trying to fight him, and then he found it, and then was fighting them in the comments. And I'm like, guys, I thought it was a fun picture. I'm like, I put it out there. Stop arguing.
This was not my intention, right?
Exactly. So we're going to kind of run down a few things that we can highlight without giving it too much away. Some pieces out there as well, too. I'll have a softball weekend preview coming out Thursday, just talking about their showdown with Kent State and that series as well, too. Talk to Coach a little bit about the freshman talent on that team as well. I've been asking her that question consistently, and she's probably getting tired of it. So I thought, you know what? I'll write an article about it and leave it at that. Zach will hopefully have a baseball preview on Tuesday. If not, we'll see what we can do.
We will see, but I will tell you, there's going to be kind of a mini feature coming out. Jack and I had talked a little bit about this. It involves both baseball and March Madness. And just to give you a little hint, Coach Maloney was the head coach at the University of Michigan for a handful of years in between his two stints with Ball State, and he became pretty good friends with the head coach of Michigan's basketball team, John Beilein. So we'll leave it at that for you, and I'll hopefully be having something for you guys to check out soon.
Yeah, it should be a little, like Susie likes to call it, a snackable. Should be a fun little feature coming. I'm also working on something as well, too. We have a handful of runners. I'm not going to give it away too much, but they're heading to run somewhere that's extremely notable, extremely recognized by the running community, the sports community, just the world and the country. So they're getting ready to run there. So look out for that.
I heard that the people who are from there actually have a pretty strong accent as well. So
yes, they do. They're very, very, very strong.
Just to give you a few hints, I don't know if any of you can pick up on that, but hey, be sure to check out the Ball State Daily News to find out.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to touch upon a few other sports as well, too. We'll see some clippings from soccer in their early season. They're just coming off a win as well against Grays College. Women's golf, EKU, catch up with them. Next Tuesday, Burris will be taking on Eastbrook. We'll have somebody there ready to go for that. That's another thing that we've been working on as well, too, reaching out to the local high schools. We're starting off at Burris right now, and hopefully next year we're going to expand a little more. But, yeah, just look out for the content we have coming. We have all different stuff coming, as well as a few features in the work. So I think that wraps it up. Once again, I am Jack Williams and with Zach Piatt. And yeah.